In this video, I will discuss about the oral presentation. Some students and professionals do not like the idea of speaking in public, whether in front of a small or large groups. Just the thought that they will be facing people already makes them jittery. However, this is a normal part of life. When you become professionals, there will always be a time that you will face an audience. It may come as an unplanned activity in which you will be forced to speak impromptu, or it may be a previously planned event that has given you sufficient time to prepare. Whatever the case may be, you need to exude some degree of confidence, as presentation of oral reports or speeches can be very threatening. As a student, you should take seriously any opportunity that comes your way and that requires you to deliver a talk. For example, in a class, there will be instances when you will be asked to make an oral report of a topic assigned to you. You may be asked to deliver a speech as a classroom activity. Though you may find this task difficult, you need to take them seriously, as they will certainly benefit you when you become professionals. Being able to speak effectively in front of an audience will always be an advantage. So some professionals become most sought after speakers because of their good oral communication skills. They are invited to give keynote speeches or give lectures on a select topic in conference or give training in seminar workshops. Sometimes, they are also taped to give a sales speech or a product presentation. Likewise, they are asked to deliver inspirational or motivational speeches during graduation ceremonies or in a similar communication setting. So, how do you prepare for this difficult task? In the previous lessons, you already learned some tips from the topics General Principles of Effective Communication and Principles of Effective Oral Communication. These principles are related to public speaking. So, let us consider the following so you can render an effective speech and can be a good public speaker. One is the audience. Under audience, you should know the profile of your listeners. So it is important that you know who will listen to you. Their age, gender, educational background, religion, economic status, and interest. Also, know how much the audience knows about the topic. That way, you can avoid discussing points that would run contrary to their beliefs and practices and thus prevent miscommunication and misunderstanding. Further, you can introduce new things for them to learn. So, you should not simply repeat things that they may have already learned from previous speakers. Know how to read the posture and gestures of your audience members, as this will signal to you what kind of audience they are. So you should be ready to face different kinds of audiences, as there may be some who are questioners, hecklers, disruptors, hostile or unresponsive or bored audiences. You should also know how to deal with unpleasant incident or conflict. So you should always stay in control of the situation. Next will be logistics. So it is something basic or essential for every speaker to know who is organizing the event. Know who will be introducing you and who will be speaking before and after you. That way, you will be able to tie up the earlier presentation with your own resulting in a more coherent presentation. So you may even give the audience an idea as to what the next talk is going to be. Under logistics, we have the venue. So the venue is equally important. So you should locate the lights, and if you have movable visual aids, know where to position them. As a speaker, you should also know how to position yourself and how you should move in front to get the attention of the listeners. Remember to work on your posture and avoid bad habits when speaking. So do not block the view of your visual aids as you present them. So you should employ a balanced posture by not standing on one leg only. Do not lean on any objects that will give support to your weight. These postures gives the impression that you lack confidence and authority. Another under logistics is the facility. So, ask beforehand about the pieces of equipment available for you. The facilities should match the presentation aids that you will use. If there is no available projector, find a way to have one, especially if your visual aids are highly complex. If there are any electrical problems or technical glitches you encounter, you should also know how to troubleshoot. So another thing to prepare is the content of report or speech or lecture. Since you have been invited as a speaker, the organizers might have sought because you have the reputation as an effective speaker. If the purpose of the event is to inform, just like in a convention conference or a training seminar, it is expected that you are able to contribute new information. So that is more on information. That is why that is informative. If the purpose is to entertain, your speech should be light-hearted, amusing, and lively. If the purpose is to persuade, your presentation should sound convincing enough. Note, however, that any communicative event may have more than one purpose, but there is always a more dominant one. So, how do you prepare for the big event? Here are some of the tips. First, read a lot. Research on the topic assigned to you. With the fast-changing times, it is certain that there are new developments that have occurred in the field. As a speaker, you should be kept abreast of these new developments by reading a lot. Another is to prepare your oral presentation with an introduction, body, and a conclusion. So, there are different techniques to open and close your presentation. So, you can use a startling or shocking statements, or you can begin with a question, or you can use a quotation. You can also narrate an anecdote or a story. You can even sing a line from a song, or you can present statistics. The strategy you will employ should match the topic that you will present. For example, you cannot sing a happy song if the topic has something to do with a tragic event. Remember that your introduction and concluding parts will leave a lasting impression on your audience. As regards the body of your presentation, emphasize the major points. So you may wish to make back up with supporting statements to further elucidate your main points. And arrange your thoughts in a logical sequence so that your listeners can easily follow your talk. You can do this by employing transitional or cohesive devices to make your ideas coherent. Next tip is to rehearse by practicing aloud and getting the feedback of those who will act as your audience during the rehearsal stage. So you may invite your family or friends to listen to you while rehearsing. So their comments and suggestions can be useful for you to improve your presentation before the big day. And last tip is to use technology. In this day and age, most speakers use technology. So technology forms part of their audio and visual aids. Through these tools, listeners can easily follow the discussion. So they can follow the discussion easily because they do not only hear but also see the highlights of the presentation. A disadvantage, however, is that some speakers rely on their visuals or visual aids that when technical problems arise, they are caught off guard and their presentation goes awry. Technology tools should be used sparingly. So visuals should be utilized only to enhance your presentations. Thus, do not copy and paste on the slides that you are to say and then simply read them verbatim. It is important that you only use keywords in your slide presentations. Pictures that will represent a concept are also encouraged. The same is true with graphs, tables, charts, maps, quotes, and important passages and sayings. So those are some tips on delivering a speech or a report. Now that you have prepared your report, speech, or talk, you are now ready to make your oral presentation. You have spent a great deal of time reading, researching, and writing this oral output, so you should also do your best to deliver it confidently. When you deliver your report, speech, or talk, make use of both the verbal and the non-verbal code. So in the previous lessons, you already learned that effective communication calls for the blending of the two codes, the verbal and the non-verbal codes. So these two are always linked together. While the former is important, the latter is equally essential as it gives emphasis to a striking thought or idea. So we have the paralinguistic cues. Subsumed under this category are facial expression, posture, gesture, movement, and the dress or attire. First, let us talk about the facial expression. For facial expression, the eyes and eye-to-eye contact are very important. There is the saying which states, the eyes are the window to the soul. This means that by establishing eye contact or true gazing, one can detect the emotional state of a person. For example, it is difficult to hide your real emotions and fake your feelings when people look straight into your eyes. When you are happy, your eyes become bigger without you being conscious about it. When you are sad, worried, or anxious, your eyes become smaller as you raise your eyebrows and make them furrow. So that is facial expression. Next is posture. So posture refers to the speaker's stance. How speakers carry themselves during the presentation will show whether or not they possess credibility. It is important that as speakers deliver their messages, they project an air of confidence so they can get the attention of the listeners and win them over their side. So how do you execute a correct posture? Simply stand comfortably with your feet at least 6 to 8 inches apart with one foot over the other. So your weight should also rest on the balls of your feet and your hands should hang naturally at the sides. Then ask yourself if you are comfortable enough with the way you stand. That is posture. Next is the gesture. So speakers who employ gestures in their speeches or reports are more convincing than those who do not. Gestures are used to make a point more emphatic. However, they should be used only for important points raised as they can become destructive when used often. Gestures abound, so a speaker should know how to create variety. Next is the movement. So, gestures are made by some parts of the body such as the hand and the arm. Movement is made by the entire body. Example, the movement of the head, shoulder, feet, etc. So, swaying one's body from left to right, side to side, front to back, or pacing from one side to the stage or platform to the other can be exhibiting a negative non-verbal cue. A speaker should know how to move on stage so that his or her movement will not be distracting to the audience. And lastly is the dress or attire. So one way to attract the attention of the audience is by dressing up properly. As a speaker, you should look good and pleasing to the eyes of the listeners. So you should dress appropriately but do not overdo it as it may create a gap between you and the audience. You should be well groomed with your hair neatly combed and your shoes well polished. So pieces of jewelry or fashion accessories should also be used conservatively. So that is paralinguistic cues. Next is the prosodic features. So when making a presentation, there are features that you need to observe. When you speak, aim at delivering your message clearly through intelligible and comprehensible pronunciation. So you need to articulate the sounds clearly by paying attention to how you move your lips, tongue, and teeth. An aspect of articulation is assimilation. It means blending the final sign or blending the final sound of a preceding word with the initial sound of the following word. For example, we have the phrase the pros and cons. So you can assimilate it through the pros and cons. So you need to blend the sound of the last letter and the beginning letter of the preceding word. So that is the pros and cons. Another is for a while. So you can assimilate it as for a while. So successful communication depend on prosodic features such as intonation, tone, stress, and rhythm. Phrases and sentences are likewise prosodic features. While it is impossible to imitate or sound like Americans or the British who use English as their native tongue, try to at least approximate them. If the listeners cannot understand what you say because of the rate of speed by which you speak, do it more slowly. So that is delivering the report speech or talk. Lastly, we have overcoming anxiety or stage fright. Many speakers become tense when making small and big presentations. This is normal. Becoming nervous only shows that you care about your presentation. You are concerned about whether the audience will pick up something from your talk. Note that a little amount of nervous tension is needed if you aspire for an excellent performance. At the beginning, you may experience anxiety, but as you go along with your presentation, your nervous tension will ease up. Eugene White and Claire Hender Linder on the year 1956 stated that we do not actually fear the process of speaking as such, but a negative response from the listeners. So this is indeed true. What people actually fear is not the process of speaking, but the negative response, the negative comment, or the negative feedback from the listeners. There are ways by which you can overcome stage fright. One way is by preparing thoroughly for your presentation. So it is important that you know about the topic and that you know more than your listeners. Another way is to practice. As the old saying goes, practice makes better. So the more you practice or rehearse, the more confident you become. So stage fright then can be minimized. It is not also a negative feeling all the time. Learn how to convert this social fear into something positive so that you can aspire for top performance. So that is about oral reports. Thank you for watching and I hope you have learned something.